Good evening, everybody. How are you? Good. You ready for this conversation? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, good. Tonight's guest is a director, a producer, a screenwriter. As an actor, he has worked in every medium, and he has appeared in such diverse projects as Third Rock from the Sun, Route 66, The Virginian, Miss Congeniality, The Fugitive, Rescue 911, Star Trek, the series, the movies, Iron Chef, T.J. Hooker, Howdy Doody, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Saturday Night Live, Playhouse 90, Mork and Mindy, Dodgeball, the hit movie that's out right now, The Practice, and the list goes on and on. I haven't even touched on his Broadway credits or his credits when he was a member of the Stratford Theater in Quebec. If we were to guess the actor by the resume, the credits that I just listed could only add up to one career. He's an incredible actor. He is an icon, and he is also a fellow member of the Screen Actors Guild. Please welcome Mr. William Shatner.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I realize now why they call the road Curson. I went to Sunset and Curson, and then realized I had to get to Wilshire, so I drove down Curson. Curson all the way.
Curson all the way.
Not only are there stop signs and bumps
Yeah.
and other cars, but then Curson ends many times.
So you got to do that zigzag.
Yeah, you got to
thing.
do the zigzag and come around, and then
Yeah.
And it wasn't so bad for me, but my wife. I feel badly for my wife.
Was it the Curson that was getting to her, or was it just the general stress?
I made her feel terrible. Sorry, Lizzie. But your bone density is good, and that's really important.
Well, listen, before we get started, I just want to congratulate you on your Emmy nomination for Denny.
It's funny, it's been a long time. An Emmy nomination is, in a way, it's almost better than winning. Almost. But, it's a great. You hear the people say it, and you think, oh yeah, it's a cliche, but it's true. It's a great honor, and to have my fellow SAG members to vote for me is it's really something.
That's great. Well, you're in great company too. It's a good group of people.
I didn't know who. Maybe you better not tell me because it'll depress me.
I won't tell. You're a shoo-in. You're going to win. Okay. So.
I'm not wearing any socks.
Well, let's start at the beginning, if we can.
That's pretty far back.
But that's what makes up the body of
work. What do you think
here.
that string is coming down from the ceiling?
These are actually microphones. See, this is the boardroom for the Screen Actors Guild Board of Directors.
This whole place is mic'd.
The whole thing is mic'd. Secret cameras, secret mics.
This is the boardroom?
This is the boardroom, yeah. Normally, there's a bunch of actors in here who are not necessarily getting along real well.
Not as friendly as this.
Not nearly as friendly as this group.
Well,
here.
perhaps I can change that.
There you go. Yeah, we'll bring a new karma to the room here. So now you were born in Canada.
Yes, and the Stratford Theater was in the province of Ontario. See, Quebec.
I got it wrong.
Well, Quebec is the fountain of many French works of art, theater, everything, in every way, shape, and form. Quebec has been a fountainhead of art, but it's a lot of it is French-oriented, and there's a great theater there was in my time. I would like to think it's still there. The Théâtre du Nouveau Monde. I'm using my French accent because I speak French, and I thought I'd just lay it out there.
That's very impressive.
As against the Théâtre du Nouveau Monde there, which is the way we used to say it in English. Yeah. And Stratford is in Ontario, is on the is on the River Avon in the town of Stratford, and a guy by the name of Jim. Does anybody remember who? Why would you? Jim somebody had a dream, and he went to England and said, "Look, I'm coming from the river Avon, in the town of Stratford, and it's a little farming community."
Right.
And he went to England and solicited, first of all, the women on the street, and didn't work. And then he went to Tyrone Guthrie and of that ilk, and they all followed him to Stratford, Canada, which was absolutely nothing, and he had this dream. I had met another group of people who had the same dream. Many years later, I'm in Los Angeles, and I get a call from Robin. I don't remember his last name. And Robin said, "I'm a member of the Stratford, Canada. I'm coming down to California to start a company." And I remember Jim had this dream about Stratford, Ontario. And I have a dream, and I have located in the center of California, Stratford, California.
No kidding.
And I'm coming down there, and I'm going to start a Stratford Festival. Can I seek your help? And I said, "Stratford, Ontario, that's incredible. It's sort of made, the karma, everything points to a grand." So he got to Stratford, California, and apparently it's one gas station and two places to store.
It says welcome to Stratford on both sides of the sign.
Right, welcome and farewell. Right. You are now entering and leaving at the same time.
Right.
You cross that line, and so he went on to where do we turn off on 99? Well, Visalia.
Yeah.
Thanks, babe. Went about 50 miles further in some direction, found Visalia, California, and started a Stratford Festival there, where I tried to raise money for them.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And they got great reviews for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And the farming community and Shakespeare didn't quite
jive. Yeah. Oh well.
So he
You just never know.
He failed.
Yeah. Okay. What was it like growing up? What did your parents do? And what kind of work ethic were you raised with?
My father was a very hardworking man. As I got to know him, it was in the throes of the Depression. I didn't realize it then. I was unconscious of that. Right. But he must have struggled very hard. He had 3 children, and he made a moderate living. He put food on the table and got conveyances. He had a car, and we lived in a moderate home. And I went to school in French Canada, and he did work very hard, and he did have a work ethic. It's interesting that you should mention that. He was from Austria, which was in and out of being part of Germany, and so he had this kind of Germanic work ethic. Things go and I don't know. I seem to have. It seemed to have rubbed off more and more. I mean, being late here is like an anathema to me. I couldn't stand it. I was almost had 2 accidents trying to get here on time, and because it's insult. It's disrespectful not to be on time, not to know your lines, not to have your resume in order, not to, the work. There's a work ethic, and that means 9 to 5, and really good. And then there's something about work that maybe rubs off on all of us as actors, and that is there is a way of putting your nose to the grindstone and being an actor. And that is looking for work, looking like you're looking for work. I mean, they come in all shapes and forms, and I thought you were here for a job, as against a pool party or something. So there is a work ethic involved in being an actor or a writer.
Yeah.
That blank page, my daughter's a writer. that blank page is both a light at the end of the tunnel and a brick wall. And you don't know what you're going to hit first. You start down the tunnel, and you think, I know what I'm going to say. I know what I'm going to... So, and then you just keep applying yourself. You go at it again and again. Right. And I think that the exercise of the imagination develops the imagination. I have come to, I never thought of that before, but as I am approaching middle age, I am beginning to see that exercising, why am I seated this way? Exercising your imagination provides provides fodder for your imagination. The more you create, the more you act, the more you write, the more you conceive of ideas, the more easily ideas come. Mm-hmm. And I think if neural pathways are formed by other things like addictions, we know now that why wouldn't they be formed by positive things like thinking, exercising your brain?
Yeah, you're exercising another muscle. When did you first know you wanted to be an actor?
Well, I can point to the precise moment. I was in a camp play. I was 6. And I did something that made the audience cry. If I vaguely remember saying something to my dog, who was played by another camper.
No small parts, though.
You know, a big husky kid, and he was a Rottweiler. I preferred a graceful greyhound, but
hey, you know.
And I said something about having to leave home, and the soldiers were coming, and the audience cried. And then there was applause, and I took a bow, and I looked around, and I realized the audience was crying. And I remember, it's funny, I can't remember, the Kherson. I don't know where Kherson is. But I can remember the impression I had, the exultant feeling, if you will, of seeing that audience and realizing I'd had a power. My father picked me up in his arms, and I got positive reinforcement there. Hey, my son Billy, he's Billy. And how do you do? How do you do, Billy? I'm Billy, and I made you cry. And that was it.
That was it.
That song sang for me until today.
Yeah. And did you go do other plays when you were in grammar school? And
I never stopped acting then. I was 6, and then I was Prince Charming of all these fairy tales and on these kid plays. We would put them on at the theater in the park somewhere in mid-Montreal, and I was at a little kids' school, and so we did fairy tales for other kids who had been invited on a Saturday. Maybe every 6 months we'd put on a play. And I was always kissing the Red Riding Hood or the princess in the class, She awoke when she was kissed.
Yeah.
I'm here. And then gradually it got my lips from being pursed, gradually widened into a more sensual kiss. As I got older. 8 or 9.
So let's jump ahead then to when you went off to school and you went to McGill University. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Did you study theater there, or did you?
No.
What did you study?
Well, I didn't think you could study theater. These concepts. From the family I came from, workaday. My father had his own business by then, and I was thought that the only son was going to go into the family clothing business, and a small, modest clothing business. But that my dad saw the day when his son and he would shoulder to shoulder make this a business. So I went down every Saturday to his business. He would work Saturday morning, and I went down there almost, I think, if I remember, perforce. You know, I mean, it was like expected. I would go down and see who was cutting what and what the books were. And as I got old enough to take all that in, and I'd get into the office, and there'd be people working, and I would have to lie down because I was very sleepy in his office. Then he'd get up, or he would do anything. Time to go home. Okay, let's go. I'd just fall asleep there.
Yeah. Too darn boring.
Either that or it was a heavy Friday night. I'm not sure. But no, it was just I just couldn't. Yeah. I couldn't do it. Yeah. And I knew I couldn't do it, but I hid it from myself. So when I went into McGill, I took all the accounting courses, and I ended up getting a business degree. But all the subjects I took were English and music and all humanities. Sort of our humanities and artistic courses, exactly. And I failed all the accounting courses. So I had to make them up in the fall in order to. You can do that here, I believe. So you study all summer to make up one or two courses, and then you take the exam in the fall, and then you lurch into the fall thing and fail some more. So my grades were just awful. I mean, I never told my kids what my grades were. But what I was doing was carrying 10 subjects instead of 5, twice the load, because I was interested in the music, and I was interested in the literature, and I was interested in whatever it was going on, and that made me alive. Right. And then I got into doing the college musicals. So I produced, directed, wrote, acted in 3 of the college musicals. Red, White, and Blue. I wonder if you've heard of them. No? I don't understand that.
Oh, wait a second.
Yes, Red, Light, and Blue.
Yeah.
For 3 years, and then I did the radio stuff. Fell in love with my friend. Oh God, I got to think of his name. Fell in love with, on a note of triumph. What is it? Norman Corwin.
Very good. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
Fell in love with Norman Corwin, one of America's great poets, who's still at 93 or 94 now, teaches English somewhere. Nigeria, I believe. No, here in town, at one of the universities. He's a great poet and was a great playwright. Right. He was the star of radio, which was all there was before television. He was the great writer-producer, Norman Corwin, and we studied him in radio classes, and I produced Norman Corwin and played Norman Corwin as a college student. And then I come down to the United States, and after some years arrive here, and the phone rings, and it's Norman Corwin.
Oh my goodness.
Norman Corwin. He wanted me to play on something that he had written. If we follow that along, I'll tell you an interesting story about Norman, a fun story about Norman Corwin. But yes?
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right.
Yeah.
I thought you had a...
Oh, heck no.
Okay.
I'm along
so
for the ride.
Here I am in love with Norman Corwin
without
having met him. So I meet Norman Corwin.
Yeah.
And I do something. Norman Corwin's company was the Mercury Theater when he was at the heyday of his radio career in the probably the 40s, probably the beginning to the end of the 50s. And for 20 years, Norman Corwin and the Mercury Theater, which was, what's his name? What?
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. So Orson Welles, I had to remember 3 pages today.
Plus it was that cursing ride.
And then the cursing ride is taking all the blood from my head. Yeah. So Orson Welles was the leading light for Norman Corwin with the Mercury Theater. And the Mercury Theater and all of the players that we saw in Orson Welles' company, his great movie,
Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane, all his... I really do know the names. I'm trying to involve you.
I know you are, and it's working really well so far. This is
Citizen
working.
Kane involved all those people. Well, all those people were in Norman Corwin's radio shows.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was in the 40s and 50s. Well, now here we are in the 70s, 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
I am. So he calls me and he says, I'd like you to play on this. And then I play that and I play on something else. Right. And then I realize that I'm playing Orson Welles' parts.
Oh, goodness.
Latter Day.
Yeah.
Wow. So the final note on that story is this. So I've become fast friends with Norman Corwin. Mm-hmm. He writes a play for me, which we opened in Utah, at the Utah Theater there, at the University of Utah. They have a wonderful theater on its way to Broadway. And then I couldn't go because Star Trek happened. But that's not my story. My story is this. At this point, somewhere in this point, PBS decides to do a retrospective of the radio years, Norman Corwin's radio years. Now, I had done a lot of radio in Canada. I put myself through college in radio. So I was like a radio person, but none of that radio technique had rubbed off on me, thankfully, because what they call a covered voice. Hello, I'm talking to you from Radioland, and it's a covered voice here. And the guy's kind of listening to his voice. Oh, that sounds so good. I'm so and that's a covered voice. You can hear, what's his name on,
Gary Owens.
Gary Owens.
Yeah.
All right, that's Gary Owens. Gary Owens is doing a covered voice. Okay. So radio actors have somehow, because if somebody sounds like this and they're talking to you, why you think, wow, I'll talk to you like this too. So now you got two people saying, well, I think I'll go for a walk. Oh, I think I'll go with you, and we'll have a nice talk. So we sat around, so Norman said to a group of people, I'm doing a retrospective of the 40s radio. What we're going to do is we're going to go to a studio, long table, radio studio, and we're going to sit around as though we were rehearsing the radio. And then we're going to get up and stand in front of the microphones. The way you stand in front of the microphones, you read, you have your papers, you take the clipper off, and you're going and reading and you're going and you're talking, but you're reading, and it's a real technique, radio technique.
Yeah.
And at the table were 3 PBS film cameras with 3 crews. Wide shot, and I got a medium shot here. I got a tight shot over here. Okay, Bill, walk over there. Norman, if you're gonna, and it's all being filmed for PBS. Yeah. For the 1980s. Yeah. Some PBS. Here was what radio was like 40 years ago.
Right.
So we start, and Norman's directing. The great director, Norman Corwin. His script, On a Note of Triumph, was one of his great scripts. It was the celebration of the victory of World War II. And Norman Corwin had Leopold Stokowski. So you didn't have to help me with that.
No, I didn't. No.
Leopold Stokowski was a renowned, bigger than Eka-Pekka.
Solomon. Yeah.
Solomon. Yeah. I love Eka-Pekka.
I do too.
Eka-Pekka, I love you, Eka-Pekka. How can you say that? How do you say I love you, Eka-Pekka?
You'd have to talk to his wife.
No.
I don't know. I don't know.
So Leopold Stokowski had it with a 92, the CBS Philharmonic was his orchestra. Yeah. And he'd stand back when in the 40s, he'd stand back and Orson Welles would drone on to something, and here on a note of triumph, and this man would throw his finger. Norman would throw his finger at Leopold. Yeah. And Leopold would go with a down stroke.
Yeah.
And 92 pieces would go, and that's the power that Norman had in his radio show.
Yeah.
So he was imagining all this power in this empty studio because there were just the actors around the table. Right. The microphone stood with a cable sticking out, but the cable wasn't connected. Right. Where was it going to go? Right. There's no audience. Right. But we were just remembering what it was like. With his voice. Okay?
Yeah.
So, an hour into it, and every so often, every 10 minutes, because there's a a 1,000-foot roll on every 10 minutes. The director would say, cut, and the actors would stop a moment and say, oh, I remember how this used to be. I remember how this used to be. And then they'd load the camera and they'd start again. And by the second time they yelled cut, we didn't cut. They stopped the camera, but we continued on because this is Norman's words, and Norman is going, all right, and now, and go, and right, and he's sitting at the table. Then we get up, and he gets behind the glass booth. There's no lights because there's no power in the studio. Right. But he's behind the glass booth, and now we're all up at the microphone, and we're hearing the magic of the radio thing. Yeah. And by this time, the lady has had enough of she's got 3,000 feet of film she doesn't need anymore. Yeah, right. They've packed up and left. And we're continuing to act. And somehow, 3 o'clock was the magic hour. We were going on the air at 3 o'clock. I don't know where that got to. But everybody started getting nervous, 3 o'clock. And Norman's calming people down. All right, great. Now, when you say and, don't say and, but say and if and and. Okay, great. And you go, and he's gonna, and then he's throwing this imaginary signal to Leopold Stokowski. Right. And an imaginary Leopold Stokowski with 92 pieces. But Norman isn't the only one who hears it, because we all hear it. And then he throws a signal to the sound man, who's doing, cloppy clops. There's no sound man. That costs money. You're not going to hire a sound man on non-existent. But he throws it, and we all hear the cloppity clops on a note of triumph. And at 3 o'clock, we go on the air. There's no air. And then we finish, we shake hands. Wasn't that a great show? Great show.
Oh, man. Wow. The power of imagination.
Oh, I'm telling you. Well, they call radio the theater of the mind. You know? And it was all there. It was all there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, go.
I was just trying to think if the same person can remember Norman Corwin's. Remind me of my other friend. He wrote Lights Out. Lights Out. Arch Oboler. Arch Oboler. Arch Oboler was like the great, his story was the one with the rats coming to the, this is his greatest, or one of his greatest, coming to the lighthouse, an island and a lighthouse. And there's a boat, and the guy in the lighthouse is saying, and it's all radio. The sea is high. And the clouds are low, and the sun is beginning to set, and all I can see is it's an empty boat, and it's coming this way, and this activity. Oh my God, there's rats, and they've landed on the shore. Oh my God, I got to go shut the door, and down the stairs, the thing, and the rats attacking on the thing. Well, that was Norman Arch Oboler's, and he became like a buddy. Right. So these two leading lights of radio that I had studied became friends of mine, and
that's great.
For many years.
That's great. Give us some of your recollections.
I'm tired now. I have to go.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. And if you do, we'll all be cursing. Okay. So
head north.
Give us some of your recollections of Sir Tyrone Guthrie and the work there at the Stratford Theatre.
Well, I had worked. By now, I had graduated from university. And I had this ridiculous degree, a business degree, and which was a curse, and I was using it on that street.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I had it had no value because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to add or subtract. I mean, let alone a debit and a credit. I had no idea.
Yeah, right.
But, and I had been all my college summers had been spent doing summer theater. In particular with Norma Springford. Do you remember Norma Springford up at Montreal during that summer? You don't remember?
No, I don't remember. No.
Well, that was her name.
Yeah. Okay.
Arch Oboler, I can't remember. Norma Springford comes to mind. So Norma Springford ran this summer theater in the park. In the park. What's the name of that park? But in a park.
They don't know.
In the center of Montreal. What's the name of that park? Okay. Laurentian Park? No. So as I graduated, I said to Norma, "Can I join your company?" And she said, "Well, you know, we've cast all. We need the leading man, the ingenue, the character guy." "No, I don't have any room." I said, "Well, you know, could I be in the box office?" She said, "Well," I said, "I have this degree. I have this back." She said, "You got a degree in business?" I said, "Yes, I have a degree in business from McGill."
Yeah.
She said, "Well, I could use you in the box office." I said, "Great." So
Wow.
I went to work in the box office.
Yeah.
I lost money. I couldn't find tickets.
Yeah.
And they got so weary of me, they hired me in the acting company. And Bruce Raymond, do you remember Bruce Raymond?
Sure.
Okay, Bruce Raymond, who was working under Norma Springford, Springford, had started several years, 3-4 years before, a professional theater company in Ottawa called the Canadian Repertory Theatre, the CRT. And Chris Plummer had been there the year before. I had kind of followed Chris. He was a couple of years older than I, and I kind of followed. And this majestic actor, filled even then at the age of 19 and 20 and 21, was, you know, he had the nose and he had the classic and he could play the piano and he played tennis and he was like, suddenly I thought, wow, that is spectacular.
Yeah.
And he had a stentorian voice, you know, and he did Shakespeare. I thought, well, that's the way you do Shakespeare. So Bruce Raymond was working at the Summer Theater as the manager, I guess. And as I lost tickets and lost money, but I started to play the summer comedies, and I was like the young guy in the summer comedies. And there were two actors there, Bruce Creeley and the other. It's right there. He's got a son acting now. Bruce Creeley. Anyway, Bruce Creeley. Remember Bruce Creeley?
I do. Yeah, Bruce. Yeah.
So Bruce was a wonderful light comedian, and I watched him with his timing and everything. And it was glorious. Yeah. Bruce Raymond moved on to the CRT, and he said to me, "Would you like to go to the CRT as assistant manager?" Of course, I've got this degree. Yeah. So I went to the CRT, and I spent a season at the CRT. While I was there, a woman whose name I've forgotten.
Then I can't help you. I'm sorry.
No, she remains nameless, but she was a heavyset lady who was kind of in the theater in Canada. She came to me and she said, "We're starting, this coming year, we're starting Stratford, Canada. And the actor, man in the white suit and all those comedy. Alec Guinness. Alec Guinness is coming for the first season." See, the story begins to make sense as the name.
Yeah.
And Tyrone Guthrie.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I've been asked back to the Mountain Playhouse."
Right.
She said, "Yes, but Alec Guinness and Sir Tyrone Guthrie." I think he was a sir. And what's her name for the costumes? Yeah. No, not Edith Head. Bigger than Edith Head. The one who did it in Milwaukee.
Help? Anyone? This side of the room? How about that side of the room? Anybody over there?
At the Guthrie Theater, the one who did the original costumes. She came. What? No. Okay. So this legendary lady did the costume.
Right.
And she said, "This is all happening, and I'd like to invite you to come to the beginning."
Yeah.
And I said, "I got to go to the Mountain Playhouse." And I did.
Oh.
And so that first season happened,
Yeah.
and it hit Canada like the Lincoln Center hit New York. Okay? So the next season, now I come back to Toronto, and then that season, that same lady says, "You want to come on the second season?" Absolutely. And so I went. Yeah. And my first day, I'd get some digs. Some local person had a bathroom and an anteroom to the bathroom where I slept. And I went to the theater. I walked over to the theater. I had nothing. I had a bike. And they had dug a hole in the ground near the Avon River. And they had put up a circus tent over the hole. The hole was very steep, the rake, and they had put the seats in by then, and a thrust stage like this, but further. But the audience surrounded you on all sides, but there was nothing behind. I mean, there was balconies and stuff, but when you performed, you were on a thrust stage here. And the rake was about like that, okay? And at the end of the aisle, there was a tent flap, okay? So the company now is all seated on the thrust stage. And I don't know anybody. They've all spent the previous season together. Hey, George, hey, I'm Mike, and I'm from Montreal, which is like being, if you were in the New York theater, it would be like Kansas City. Ooh. It isn't Philadelphia.
No, not even Buffalo.
Buffalo is even good.
Yeah.
No, this is Kansas City, and you're a country bumpkin.
Yeah.
And they don't know who you are. They don't know that I've had 15 years of experience here of performing. So I'm some
bumpkin. Yeah.
And suddenly a shaft of light hits me. I look up, and it's a staircase to this steep rake, to this
tent flap.
Tent flap. Yeah. And the tent flap is filled with Zeus. Zeus is coming down from Mount Olympus. And he comes down the rake, and I'm sitting there, and he comes down. He's the tallest man I've ever seen. He's 6'6". And do you remember that thing they said about Olivier, that first his nose comes in and then Olivier comes in? This man really had a real nose that preceded him. He had a beak on him like this. And this nose, I was fascinated by the nose as it came closer and closer. I thought it was going to spear me. It was Sir Tyrone Guthrie with his enormous belly. Hello. 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 And that was Sir Tyrone Guthrie, my first impression.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
I thought so.
Yeah, well, this side of the room is helpful, but I think they're also a problem over there. We got to watch them over there.
They're little, the blood flow.
Yeah, that's it. Let's talk about when you made your move to New York City and what brought you there and what it was like.
Well, now I had spent 3 seasons at Stratford.
Yeah.
I had learned to fence.
So much. Yeah.
I had learned to. I had saved $500 after 3 years of acting in Canada. I had saved $500, 500 Canadian dollars.
Which used to be worth more than,
Then it was worth 10 cents more. That's exactly right. And who played the lead in it's easier for me to do this than to remember the name.
Okay.
The 4 guys in the Western.
Oh, Bonanza.
Bonanza. Who played
Lorne
the lead?
Greene.
Lorne Greene. Okay. Lorne Greene.
I got one.
So Lorne Greene was playing something, and he had a covered voice.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he was called the voice of God. The weather is going to be rainy. It will rain today. Lorne Greene. So he was playing. Yeah. So Lorne Greene says to me and another actor, there was a little closet-like office in Stratford. It was the stockbroker's office, and across the thing there was this tape of the stock market. And he said, they're going to make an announcement about uranium. Uranium stocks are hot, Bill. Take your $500. Buy uranium. What was that line in Death of a Salesman? And I went into the forest, and when I came out, I was broke.
Right.
I was broke. Yeah. That Friday night, I got another lesson for you. So I bet all my money on a uranium stock, and that Friday night after the market was closed, the Prime Minister made an announcement, totally unexpected. The Canadian government will never buy uranium again. Boom, disappeared.
Dang, yeah.
My $500.
Yeah.
That was the $500 I was going to go to New York
with. Yeah.
So, as fate would have it, Guthrie had done a version of Tamerlane or Tamburlaine by Marlowe, and in England with Olivier. We had at that point a great English actor. Take my word for it. Oh, God. Guns of Navarone. Who was the Englishman in Guns of Navarone? Big, broad... What?
David Niven.
Another one. Big, broad-faced guy. What? Shakespearean actor. Handsome, tall, but broad-faced. No. Doesn't matter. He played... he was cast as Tamburlaine, and I was his assistant. And Guthrie knew this play now because he had done it before.
Right.
And so it was a great, lavish production that went to the Winter Gardens for a limited run of 12 weeks. And I went with it. And something I did, I don't remember the part, Dan Petrie, the director, Dan Petrie, and his son, Don Petrie. Right. Dan Petrie was in New York at that point, and every time he sees me now, over the many, many years, since I got to meet Dan in live television all those years ago, he says to me, Uzum Kasane. Oh yeah, that was the name of the part that I played in Tamburlaine. He remembers the part. Uzum Kasane was the name of the part. Well, somehow what I did got some notification, and some critics recognized, and I got an agent, and I got offers, and so to make a long story short, that was it. But I, who had planned to come to New York with my $500 and had lost my $500, was rescued by the Stratford company, who put together this play that then launched me into live television.
That's wonderful. And great. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the experience of doing live television back in New York. I mean, you did Playhouse 90, you did Studio One, all of those, the Kaiser Hour.
Yeah, everything that was going then. We worked, you worked as hard and as frequently as you could because you were being paid. I've forgotten how much, but I remember that when I started having my babies, and it started, you get a little frantic about paying the bills, and I could never get more than $1,800 a head. That was the magic figure. Get $1,800. I was going to put $1,900 in. Something would happen. It would require $1,000, and it's back down to $900. So I worked all those shows. I became the most. I don't know whether it was popular, but certainly the most, the working actor of live television, most frequently employed actor in that around that time was the rumor that was going around. So I was there all the time, and after all the years of theater, and weekly stock and repertory, doing a live television show was like rehearsing and opening night next week. While you're playing during the evening, you're rehearsing another play during the day in stock. So that's what I did. And again, I looked younger than I was, but I was this tremendous amount of experience. And so I was unusual for that reason in live television.
Accounted for
Absolutely.
your higher ability?
Absolutely. Because I was flexible. I could learn lines. I didn't blow up. I didn't get nervous. I was used to facing the audience.
Did you have any thoughts about this medium television? I mean, did it, or was it just a job and you just went?
No, it was miraculous. I wasn't there when the first sets came on, but and being in Canada, it came all of a sudden because it was being worked out in the United States. We were about 10 years behind, but suddenly, boom, there was television, and the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation in Toronto, was suddenly broadcasting television shows. And those radio actors, of which I was one, and we had won many Peabody Awards in Canadian radio, from everything from Shakespeare to comedy in radio. Suddenly, those radio actors were working in television, but many of the radio actors, John Draney, which may be a name that would resonate in people who knew radio. John Draney was the greatest Canadian radio actor that ever lived. Even to this day, they remember John Draney because of all the parts and his way. He just had a way about him, and things he did. Couldn't make the transition to television because he was a radio actor. He worked too much off the script. He couldn't let go of the script, and he couldn't. He didn't have the flexibility of a stage actor. I'm reminded of horses somehow. A picture of a horse just came into mind. The way a quarter horse is so flexible, and other types of horses who are trained another way are stiff and stuff, but not the quarter horses. They're ready to do anything, to react to a line, to not to react. If something goes wrong, you're there. You're in balance.
Right. So, was there ever a time when you were doing live television where something just went horribly wrong and you had to work your way out of it? I mean,
many great stories. Great stories. Basil Rathbone, is that the name? Okay, Basil Rathbone. Yeah. Billy Budd. Yeah. Play Billy Budd. I was playing Billy. Basil Rathbone was the captain or something. He was the bad guy. And there's preamble in the play, and now we're on the air. The little red light's on the camera, and we're on. And Mr. Rathbone makes his entrance. Here he comes. Billy, hide. No, I'm okay. Here he comes. Here comes Basil. Basil's coming down. Basil's coming down. I'm here. I'm Basil. That's exactly what happened. He's got his foot in a pail. I'm Basil Rathbone. and he went up.
Oh man!
And all of us actors were scurrying around trying to make it right. He never recovered. The wonderful, perhaps the best story of all in live television was the famous makeup guy.
Max Factor.
No, the one who did the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Lon Chaney. Lon Chaney Jr., his son. Okay, Lon Chaney Jr. Lon Chaney Jr. was now in New York, and he was going to do something. I forgot what it was, some play that somebody had written. And he was rough, tough, and in one scene, he has a fight in a bar. So the fight in the bar is choreographed, and we do it in rehearsal for a week. I'm gonna punch him here, boom, and I'll take this table. And now we get on the floor, and we get on the floor, and the director says, "All right, this is balsa wood now, so don't. We got one balsa wood, we got a balsa wood table, we got a balsa wood chair, and we got this balsa wood piece of timber here. So Lon, don't use it. I mean, just mime it, Right. So Lon says, "Oh, okay, so I take the table and I hit him like that, okay, and then I take the chair and I smack him over here, and then I take the limb and I go okay, okay, great, you got it. Okay, that's the rough dress rehearsal in 15 minutes. Okay, dress rehearsal." And I take the chair, I go like that, I take the table, and then I get the slim, and I go like that. Okay, ready. All right, everybody, here are the notes, and we're on the air in 7 minutes. So good luck, stay with it. It was a really great show. Go with it, everybody. Mr. Chaney, congratulations, you're doing a marvelous performance. Chaney goes into his dressing room, we don't know it, but all right, CBS presents whatever they're presenting. Hey?
Yeah.
10 million people turn on their new sets, and they see Lon Chaney go, and I take the table, and I go like
Wow. Kind of hard to cover that, too, isn't it? That's just,
legendary stuff. Stuff that it's classic. I mean, the stories go on. I don't know whether how long to dwell on this.
Well, let's keep it moving. We'll bounce back from time to time. What brought you then out to Hollywood? What you spent some time in New York.
I think it was my cheekbones.
Yeah, is that right?
I think it was my cheekbones. I was now popular player in television here, in New York, and I had been on Broadway three times by then. So I forgot, but I'd done years on Broadway, and as I was a known quantity in New York, my billing had been above the title in a play in New York, and so I was sort of
Making a name.
Yeah. Which I say because the act of making a name is a factor. As a professional actor, I don't admire that people get carried away with making a name.
Right.
The idea of making, my name. But what it is useful. The name is useful to making a living as an actor. So it becomes part of your repertoire, if you will. The same skills of voice and body. What's also useful is, well, I was so-and-so in such and such. Oh, great, I saw that, good. Well, we'll hire you because we know that you may not be quite right for it, but we know you're capable, which is far safer than somebody who's absolutely right, but we don't know. What have you done? Who just came out of school? Okay, we don't know.
Right.
So this name thing has a value, both for salary and for getting hired. Yeah. But I had nothing here in Los Angeles. But apparently, one day I was in a show of some kind, and somebody here was casting a movie, The Brothers Karamazov, Richard Basehart and Yul Brynner. Right. And Yul Brynner had this Slavic face, and they must have. I've gotten this sort of by osmosis more than somebody telling me this story, but I believe this to be true because of things that I had learned so long ago, but I think it's true. So this guy saw my cheekbones. He said, my God, that looks like Richard Basehart, who's a brother, and Yul Brynner, the shape of the face. Yeah. And Lee J. Cobb, who was playing, I don't know whether any of these names mean anything to you guys, but Lee Cobb, again, because of live television, this great stage actor, again, who befriended me, and we became buddies. Even moving out here, I came to see him in his house on occasion. He was playing in this movie, so somehow along the line, I got this part. Yeah. And that was the beginning of my career here, because I was in this huge motion picture, which was everybody was waiting for. It was a classic, and all these actors and this great director and the cinematographer, and it got terrible notices and just sort of faded away. Yeah.
But that didn't stop you.
No, well, next job. Well, I just finished a picture with Yul Brynner. Yeah. So I'd like to be in your film. What were the grosses? I don't know. I don't follow that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. Now you got hired by Stanley Kramer, right?
Then I got hired by Stanley Kramer.
Yeah, Judgment at Nuremberg.
Yeah.
That was an incredible cast.
It was remarkable, and here I was.
Spencer Tracy, Marlene Dietrich.
You're probably better at the names than I am. Judy Garland, Montgomery Clift. I mean,
how did you feel
Burt
walking
Lancaster.
into that cast?
Well, two emotions were dominant.
Yeah.
One was awe.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at all these people who were playing. And the other was a certain arrogance that a New York theater actor carried here in those days. Yeah, I'm a New York actor.
How about that?
Yeah. I just did 2 years on Broadway. I'm a New York actor.
Yeah.
You're in movies, I know. But I'm a New York actor. So they'd call you're the New York actor.
Yeah.
That's what, even though I came from Montreal, I was a New York actor.
Yeah.
So I was a New York actor. So I came with sort of, film actors. They're pretty good. Yeah. So Spencer Tracy launched into a enormous speech of some kind. Yeah. And it was very complex, and he had all kinds of music going with it. It was beautifully worked out. Yeah. And he finished it. And we were waiting around somewhere, and I said, Tracy, I didn't know that film actors memorized lines like that.
And?
He never spoke to me again. I mean, can you imagine this arrogant youth? Yeah, I'm a New York actor. Why won't he talk to me? I'm a New York actor.
Yeah.
So it was awesome.
Yeah.
Burt Lancaster came in to do a speech of some kind. Again, like everybody had 2 or 3 days. So he came in. You know, I can't do Burt Lancaster, but he did a speech and he did it so well. You know, I don't know. Then he was playing a German general. Right. Cut. Thank you, everybody. Applaud Mr. Lancaster. Thank you, Mr. Lancaster. Farewell. Good end of the movie, Mr. Lancaster. Applaud Mr. Lancaster. Say goodbye to Mr. Lancaster. Goodbye, Mr. Lancaster. Goodbye, everybody. Next day. Mr. Lancaster wants to do it again. He's coming back. We're going to do it again. We saw rushes, and he felt there were some things that he wanted to correct. So we're going to do another day with Mr. Lancaster. Welcome, Mr. Lancaster. Mr. Lancaster. Mr. Lancaster gets up, and he didn't change a thing. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
It was exactly the same way that he had done the day before. But it filled with things like that.
Yeah.
Montgomery Clift drunk all the time.
Do you see this picture?
He was so drunk he didn't know. Oh, where's the picture? Oh, there's a picture.
Do you see this picture?
Oh. Judy Garland. What about Judy?
Judy Garland?
Yeah.
Judy Garland was gone too. It was the latter stages of their careers.
Right.
And they were remarkable personalities, the remnants of personality, the embers of what they once were. Montgomery Clift was, you see him in Red River.
Yeah.
I mean, he was glorious, young guy, and the drink just ate him up. And same thing with her. Just tragic, but great talents that they were. And even the remnants of what they were was held you on the screen. Formidable.
Yeah. You've always seemed to have the ability to move back and forth between mediums, and you moved from films or from television to films, and then back into some of the classic television series of the time. What was it like? Let's bring up one, Twilight Zone. What was it like working with Rod Serling?
Well, Twilight Zone was a half-hour sort of mystery. You know, you didn't quite know what it was, and actors were hired. They did them. I think they did them in 5 days. Maybe 3. Short period of time. You got a moderate amount of money, and it was a job.
Right.
And I had worked with these people, all of them, Frankenheimer and him in live television. Now they would move to Los Angeles, and they were doing this rather interesting, but it wasn't what it is now.
Right.
It wasn't this classic thing.
Sure.
It was a half-hour show that everybody was kind of making a living on.
Yeah.
And so I went, and then they asked me back again. I did it.
Which episode did you do first? Did you do the Terror at 10,000 Feet?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. But it wasn't. One didn't note it as out of the ordinary.
Sure.
Same. You know, things have become. People look back on some of these things as though we knew, and we knew not.
What was Rod Serling like? I mean,
He was kind of cool and distant. He was part of a writing team that involved people like Dick Matheson and Charles Beaumont.
Very good.
and Richard Johnson. Richard, what's his 3 names? George Clayton Johnson. And George Clayton, they call themselves the Green Thumb. These guys were all part of a sort of community of writers, and they were great. Yeah. They were the science fiction nucleus in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and they wrote all those kinds of stories. Of course, Dick Matheson went on to huge things, and his son, and I wish I could remember some of the other names. What was his name? You just mentioned it. Beaumont. Yeah. Beaumont, thanks. Charlie Beaumont wrote a novel called The Intruder.
Right.
And then they made it into a film.
Yeah.
And they asked me to be in it. And I became good friends with Charlie Beaumont. And then the movie was over and it got great reviews, but didn't do much business. But we all remained friends. And I used to go see Charlie once a week. We'd have lunch. And he'd get drunker and drunker. Shortly after the movie, he was getting more and more tipsy at lunch. And he'd never drank before. And he was just, finally, about 6-8 months into it, he was kind of, he'd have lunch, he'd have a drink, and he'd be lolling around, almost falling down. Well, it turned out he had this bizarre disease, something out of a science fiction novel. He aged. He died an old man in a year. I don't know what the name of that thing is, but he died of old age. His body just collapsed in on him. And he wasn't drinking at all, or he was having a social drink, but it was he must have been allergic or reacted in such a way.
Well, let's get to what I know so many people here want to talk about. Can you talk about your experience being cast in Star Trek and then your time working on the show? How were you first cast in it? Because you weren't in the pilot, were you?
No, Jeffrey Hunter was in the pilot. Wonderful actor, good-looking guy. He'd made a name for himself in films, and so they made a pilot called Star Trek, during which time I was in Utah doing a play. No, that was a year later. They made a pilot. Then they decided that NBC's decided not to buy Star Trek, but that they wanted to, it was so interesting, they wanted to try again with a new script, a new cast. Everybody but Leonard Nimoy, who smiled a lot in the first.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
And so they went looking for a cast. And Roddenberry had seen me somewhere, I've forgotten where now, probably in a New York series that I was doing called For the People. And he asked me to come from New York to Los Angeles to see the pilot. So I saw the pilot, and it was an interesting pilot, interesting story. I'd never sort of seen something like that before, and I thought the character was interesting, but everybody was walking around like this is their 5-year mission, and they were walking around like they just set sail, you know. Turn to the left. I think we should turn to the right. Yeah, no, turn to the right. They're all very pedantic. And so I said, well, if you could make this lighter, if it could be, if you could have some lightness here, and maybe they're familiar with each other. Hi, let's turn to the left. So that and a few more suggestions, but mostly in the area of lightening things up.
Yeah.
Play it more for laughs and stuff. And that's what we did. And we did this second pilot, and it sold. And that was when I was in Utah. When I got a phone call saying the pilot sold, you can't go to New York with this play.
Now, was that the first regular that you were on the series, or had you?
No, I had done a series out of New York called For the People. Do you remember The Defenders?
Yeah, you bet. E.G. Marshall.
E.G. Marshall. I had done The Defenders on Studio One, and then they asked me to be in The Defenders, and at that point I was a New York actor.
Yeah.
And New York actors didn't do series.
Right.
Then Richard Chamberlain made a big hit in Dr. Kildare, and now New York actor wanted to be in a series.
Yeah.
So the what's his name of The Defenders?
E.G.
No.
No.
Robert.
Robert Reed?
No, the producer.
Oh.
Legendary. New York.
Stumped.
No, you
Anybody?
can't be.
There's a microwave oven in it for
Who
you.
did Studio One? Who did The Defenders? Who did The Nurses?
There you go.
What? No. Close.
Anyway, the guy that did all those, and we'll remember.
Well, his
later.
name should be remembered
I know it should.
because look at, I mean, even those shows that I can remember were great shows.
Right.
So I want you to remember his name.
I will.
Okay.
I will. Somebody run quick to IMDb.
So he was doing the defenders, which is the defense attorneys.
Yeah.
And he said, I'd like to do from the district attorney's point of view. And he called it For the People. And I agreed to be in it. We did 13 shows, but we were opposite Bonanza.
Oh, yikes. Okay.
So Lauren Green lost me my my job once again.
That guy. All right, so you're doing the pilot for Star Trek, and I mean, how's the experience right from the start? I mean,
Well, it's a great experience. First of all, it's NBC. And secondly, it's Paramount Studios. Well, it was Desilu to begin with, but then they broke down that wall. Mr. President, break down that wall. And they broke the wall from Desilu that separated Desilu from Paramount, and Desilu became Paramount. And so we continued on. Lucille Ball was my boss for a while. And it was just great fun. I mean, imagine being in a legend, there's that word again, but I love the history of our profession. I love the fact that we come from a long line of minstrels, and at best we're playing the minstrel around the campfire and singing songs and amusing people, and at worst we're in burlesque, you know. But it's a great tradition, and I think we should always be conscious of that. Revel in it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Revel with a cause. We should do that because it's part of being an actor. We are actors, and it rings. It has a tinkle to it. Yeah. Especially if you have to pee. Sorry, young lady. So I did that series, and then was asked by Roddenberry when it was over to come to Los Angeles, and then I kind of stayed.
What are your impressions of Gene Roddenberry? I mean, what was he
Why was I
like?
telling you that story? Where was I going?
Which? This.
The pilot. Okay,
We're just talking about
I clarified that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I answered your question.
Yeah.
I talked so long that not only I, but everybody else has forgotten your question.
Well, we're going to move on. But
Okay.
Gene Roddenberry, what was he like, and how present was he during the?
Gene Roddenberry, again, was a writer. A strange thing happened along the way. The writers took it upon themselves to produce and direct. The original reason for writing, I always thought, was to inure yourself against people. You wanted to get into a room, see a blank paper, fill it with ideas, with imagination and fantasy, and most writers are not people persons. Same way most horse trainers have gone to horses instead of people. So I think you could say it's valid that if you were to take a survey of writers, that most of them are shy and less gregarious than most other people. Let's presume that.
Okay.
Well, now they say, well, gee, I don't like the way that director or that producer is doing my work. If you want my script, you have to let me produce it. And maybe in a while I'll direct it. Well, producing and directing is all about people. So you've got this conflict between the hyphenates. In the hyphenate, you've got a conflict of personality. And they either learn people skills or they don't learn people skills. I think that's the root of many problems of writer-producers who are very emotional. Yeah. At least that's a possibility. So Roddenberry was in that area. His people skills were not honed. He was a wonderful guy, and he put this cast together, and he came up with some of these story ideas, and he hired the right people. So he was there for the first 13. The truth of the matter is he was there for 13 and then faded from view gradually. Yeah. And a guy by the name of Gene Kuhn came on in the middle of the first season and then continued on till well into the second season. He really made Star Trek. What is, but you don't hear his name. No. Roddenberry, this is an interesting story about Roddenberry that now that he's long gone and one could tell, when I say one, I'm trying to remove myself
Sure,
But
right.
I better say I
Well,
can tell.
what the heck.
After a while, Paramount asked him not to be a part of it, and that he'd be a supervisor, and that taken away from the everyday. I think because he didn't manage the money well and people well and that kind of thing. So 3 years later, Gene has gone on to another studio, and the producer has been hired, and we're into the third year of Star Trek, and it's over. Star Trek's over. Everybody's sad. It's gone. Goodbye, Star Trek. Then about 4 or 5, and Gene Roddenberry has been sent on to some other studio. Please go, Gene. It's fine. We don't need you anymore. It was a great job.
Right.
5 or 6 years later, they start to talk about a movie. Since Star Wars came out, what about a Star Trek movie?
Right.
By this time, the management of Paramount has changed. So they think, well, who started Gene Roddenberry? Let's get Gene Roddenberry. So they get Gene Roddenberry for the first movie, and they find out that Gene Roddenberry doesn't quite make it day to day. So they say, Gene, it's great, just be supervisor, and we'll get who's it for the next 6 or 8. What was his name? Harv Bennett. Get Harv Bennett. So Harv Bennett gets in, and Harv Bennett makes all those movies. Those great, those wonderful movies.
Yeah.
Well, our cast outlives its usefulness, and so we die. And they make another series.
Yeah.
By this time, the management has changed in
Again.
Paramount.
Yeah.
They get Roddenberry back. Is that a wild Hollywood story?
This is a guy who just couldn't make his career
Well,
go
I mean,
away,
he just couldn't make it go
Yeah.
away, But
That's
his
great.
skill was in hiring the right people.
Yeah.
So
so
it worked.
Yeah. That's great. Ed McCready here asks, besides your own role, which was your favorite character on Star Trek?
Spock. Yeah.
Spock. Yeah.
Leonard and I became good friends and really great friends, good buddies, and I got to know him so well that I had an idea that I called Mind Meld, and I did a DVD with him in which I sought to do an interview with him where we didn't pull any punches, where he talked about his alcoholism and his fight against it, and deep subjects that you wouldn't ordinarily get to. So he revealed even more with me. He took down his pants.
Yeah.
Figuratively.
Yeah. Thank you. Adam Silverstein wants to know, how did you create the character of Evil Kirk in the Enemy Within episode of Star Trek? What did you do? How did you prepare that? What did you bring?
Well, we all have our reptilian brain lurks not far from our ego, or is it superego? And you can tap into your reptilian brain fairly easily.
Yes.
If you're driving down Kherson.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's coming back again.
And so Evil Kirk came out on the drive here. I mean, just go to Road Rage.
Yeah.
And you've got Evil Kirk. You see.
Yeah.
So it's not difficult.
Was that a fun exercise for you to kind of play
Well, it's
against
great
it?
fun, yeah. The double roles are always great fun. Because you've got to record one first. You've got to set one to which the non-existent part, because I'm going to be in your chair momentarily, but only after I've finished recording this.
Yeah.
So it's great fun trying to figure out what to do. Because figuring out is also a part of acting. You can approach many moments on a logical vein. And you can say, not only what would this character do, but what's an effective thing to do here? And if it is effective, if that's effective, and I want the character to do that, now I've got to rationalize that into my character and make it work. Now, if it works, how strange and interesting that is. This guy says, we have a reptilian, sorry. Now I've knit it in, you see.
Yeah. Do you come at things with behavior first, or do you try to...
You can go either way. You can go any way, as long as it's true to the spine of what you're playing. If you've resolved in your mind a one-line spine of your character, and that goes for writing or plot or anything, I think. If you've come to a conclusion that maybe you could explain in 2 sentences, then you have a thing from which everything emanates. And if you stay true to that, you should be, I think you'll be staying true to your character.
How different was it working on the film versions of Star Trek as opposed to the series, and how much had changed because so much water had gone
Well,
under
all
the
those
bridge
guys,
since then?
other guys got older.
Yeah, how did that happen? And you didn't.
And so getting older was part of that. How you looked and even how you moved. You fight it for as long as you can, and then one day you say, "Geez, I'm stiff." Oh man, you know. And when you go to turn your head, you turn. So the movies, we were older. We started about a decade older and went on from there. And the television show was more exciting in its way because it was 10 pages a day of dialogue. I had to remember the word today. Is that awful? Yeah. Jeez, that is really bad. That's the big fear, of course, is the memory. And I don't have a problem.
Not around here, you don't.
No. Well, I don't. I mean, I thought when I went into the practice, I thought, I wonder if I could memorize all this stuff.
Yeah.
Long
Yeah.
speeches to the jury and some summations and it just, you have to work a little harder. Tie it in closer with the way you should anyway. Tie it in with ideas. And so, but my fear is that when I can't remember a word, I'm remembering. I am remembering so much. There's so much happening in my life.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm remembering half of what I am is quite interesting to me. But so, I wish I could remember the word I couldn't remember. I blew a take on this word.
Did you?
Yeah. Now I can't remember.
Well, it'll come to you about 2 a.m.
Right. I'll call you all.
There seemed to be sort of a joy in that cast. I mean, when the films came out, it looked like you guys were so comfortable and were having a good time.
We had fun. Mostly, we liked each other.
Right. Yeah, mostly.
I liked everybody.
Yeah.
But apparently some of the cast had a problem with me, and I never understood that.
Do you understand any better today?
No, I don't actually.
Yeah.
No, but I suppose.
You're still speaking, though, from what
Yeah.
most of them say.
Oh, yeah.
We got over it. Let's see here. Peter Chen asks, how do you manage the 2 roles when you directed Star Trek 5, wasn't it? Or 4?
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's the most difficult thing. First of all, nowadays, almost everywhere, the camera has a television lens.
Video assist kind of.
Video thing. Yeah. Word "thing" really works.
It does, yeah.
And so you can play back the scene you're in to see if you were as bad as you thought you were when you were in the scene. But it is very difficult. And you have to have in your head the sense that I think you only get either being in the theater or going to a lot of theater of what an audience's reaction will be. So you have to have, as an actor, you're 10% of your perception is the audience. As an actor-director and you're in the scene, it's not good because you have to be sort of thinking, well, how good is that? And then you have to be into it enough to look like you know what you're doing. So it's difficult, but I love it.
You do enjoy? Yeah.
The best.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's see here. What have been the best and the worst aspects of playing an iconic character? This is a question from Ron Anthony.
Oh, I guess I take it you mean Star Trek. Well, you know, Star Trek has been the means of my having a career. Not that as I hastily point out, not that I was unemployed
Right.
before Star Trek, but became coin of the realm. And I was able to do things that I would never have been able to do before. Among those things, get films that I had written or had written and be able to produce them or direct them or act in them or all three. And although none of them were really successful, the act of dreaming something and then writing it and getting 110 pages on it, and then people reading it say, hey, you know, they sit at a reading and, wow, this is good. And you fill yourself with the fantasy that it's good, you know, and then you go to war with the cameras and the sets and the locations and the people and the noise and the dogs and the you know, and the stomach ache and the tensions and the lack of sleep and the fatigue and then the things that don't happen that should have happened. Why? What do you mean? What do you mean? You're going to cable at 5 in the evening when the sun sets at 6 and you won't have enough cable? You can't cable at night when we need the lights. You got to cable at 3 in the, you know, like at 9 o'clock in the morning and spend all day cabling. Well, we don't have the money to cable. But you can't I mean, impossible things like that.
Right.
Or, you know, soaring things like flying from a mountain location to desert floor, and they're getting there before, and everybody's coming from the mountain location. They're flying in, trucks are coming, huge trucks. Park over there! No, over there, park! You're parked behind us! Don't step on the ground! Put the camera down low, wait, get his fisheye, and you get the texture of the ground. And when you step over there, get the smoke machines. Oh, the smoke machine. Oh, God, it's great! You know?
It's like a circus.
Oh, God, like a 10-ring circus. So good.
Yeah. And the worst part of being of having the iconic status of James.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah.
Say beam me up.
Yeah.
Ah, come on.
You still get it.
Come on.
Right? Yeah.
Come on. Come on.
Yeah. And they just won't give up, will they? Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Now, come on. Come on. Come on.
This must have been what prompted you to write the
Ben
book,
Stiller
right?
could have kept that going for 15 years. Right?
Yeah. Is that what prompted you to write the book, Get a Life, there? You know,
Well, no. Get a Life was written because I'd see all these people and I wonder, where the hell do all these people come from? You know, some years ago, there used to be 15,000 people.
Yeah.
I thought, what am I going to say next? I don't know what to say. What was the question? I can't hear the question. I don't know what to say. If I say the wrong word, well, you know, if I can't remember whatever that word was, it's a. So I wondered who those people were, and why they were coming to see me.
Right.
Because I'm a New York actor. So I started going around asking the audience what they were doing there. You know what I discovered?
What?
They were coming to see each other. They weren't coming to see me.
How about
No,
that? Huh?
it was like a convention of people. They all said, hey, George, there you are. It's good to see you. What have you been doing? Oh, here's Shatner. I'll talk to you in a minute. You know? Oh, that put me in my right place.
There's several questions in here about how you get along in just everyday life. I mean, are you able to, go get an ice cream cone without being barraged by fans and questions? And
no, it's
just say
pretty-
beam me up once, just once. Please.
I should say,
No,
right.
I'm saying
Yeah,
just, everywhere you go.
It's tough. I usually, when we go out to eat, I'm with my lovely wife Elizabeth, or I'm with my daughter Liz.
Right.
Or her fiance Andrew Clement,
Yeah.
who is a special effects man who's extraordinary. Has his own business called CC. CNC.
Get those plugs in there
those plugs in.
any way we can.
So I'm mostly with friends and family, and I don't want to go with anybody else.
Right.
You know, entourage of any kind. I don't have anybody remotely resembling that. Yeah. So it's just Lizzie and I, and I try and put a hat on. I drive a motorcycle a lot, so I put a helmet on and glasses. You know.
They just don't notice.
Well, actually, they do. They drive up and says, "Beam me up, Scotty."
You know,
I don't know how they recognize, but it's the darndest thing. When I wrote Get a Life, in trying to assess what the audience was doing, why the people were there, I put on like total rubber masks.
right.
You know, just hide my voice. And I'd come up and I'd say, "Hey, how are you?" And I'd say, "Oh, yeah." And "What are you doing here?" They say, "Oh, Shatner, is that you?"
How do they know? How's that possible?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I remember 25 years ago, I was on a plane from Los Angeles up to the Bay Area, and you were on that flight.
Well, with a rubber mask?
No, you didn't have your mask on. But the gentleman sitting next to me was a guy who at that time must have been 40 years old or something, and he is just writing and writing and writing. And he wrote this lengthy letter to you and walked up to your seat and handed it to you.
Wow.
And I remember you looking up at him and being incredibly gracious. And I couldn't help but think, what the hell is this guy's problem?
Really?
I mean, he's writing, just page after page, and it just.
Well, he did have a problem, and let me tell you about it.
But I was struck by how gracious you were to this guy, That must wear thin from time to time. I mean, you must want to just cold cock somebody.
Not thin enough, but
yeah,
it wears
well,
thin
there you
armor.
go. Yeah. I want to ask about you again. We're talking about sort of the facile nature that you bring to your career, and you went from the Star Trek films, and then you took on something like Rescue 911. What led you to that? I mean, what drew you to want to do something like that?
Well, I had done I think it was an Air Force documentary for.
For the Air Force? No, yes.
For the producer of 911.
There you go. Okay, all right, yeah.
Okay, I'll think of it in a minute. Anybody remember? Shapiro, Arnold Shapiro.
Very good.
Yes,
Ding, 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 ding,
Arnold
ding, ding.
Shapiro.
Okay, very
For
good.
Arnold Shapiro.
One for this side.
Right.
Okay.
So for Arnold Shapiro, and funny how would you know that? So embarrassing. And then he had this idea to do all these rescues, and his brilliance was that he was going to show rescues that were mostly successful.
Right.
And it was only after years, went on for 6 years, that we realized, or that I realized, maybe he did earlier than that the reason the show became so popular, as against all these other reality shows that kind of came and went, was because we were showing happy things. Enough jeopardy, enough people didn't make it to make you wonder whether this guy was going to make it. But it happened that they made it more often than they didn't make it. And 300 lives at that time were saved.
Yeah.
300 lives.
Yeah.
I met Dr. Heimlich,
Yeah.
a very arrogant man.
Is that right? He learns to do this, and that's it, huh? Yeah.
And
What have you done
before
lately?
you turned around, right? But why did I do it? Well, first of all, it was a good job.
Yeah.
I went in, started a Saturday and Sunday. We lowered that to every Sunday, and shot what we needed to do. So it was like not taking too much of my time, and it paid very well. And it was a good show. And as they asked me to stay year after year, and as I saw the quality of the show and the good it was doing, it was great fun. I loved it.
Yeah, it was a good show. I also noticed in looking up credits, you've appeared on game shows throughout your career as well. You were on What's My Line? You did the Match Game.
Right.
Do you like game shows? I mean, is that something that you?
I don't like to lose.
Yeah.
Well, I am.
Yeah.
Game shows provide a service, and the service is publicity. You get on a game show, and they say, "Well, here is Shatner, and his movie is opening." Whatever it is, it reaches a large audience. Now, I don't know yet. I'm still not convinced that all the publicity that actors do for a thing they're in is of any value.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
I go on Howard Stern in order to push something. You know, I've got a record coming out October 2nd. It's the best thing I've ever done. Okay?
Okay.
Coming out on October 2nd, a record I'm calling Has Been. And you're going to have to hear it. And it's Ben Folds, a genius musician. The guys who did Rhino Records, who took a record I had done years ago called The Transform Man, and took one cut. The song varied, but usually it was Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Right.
So the Transform Man really was a look at how music and literature fit together.
Right.
So I would do a piece from the classics with fresh music, new music written for it, and it segued into a song of that time.
Right.
And I said the lyric as though it were literature, and the music carried it. So you saw the relationship and of either the way it joined in philosophy or contrasted. Philosophy either was part of or contrasted the philosophy of the literature. So the first, and that was a 6-minute cut. So Cyrano was the first, I think, it was linked with Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and Cyrano ends, "I may climb to no great heights, but I will climb alone." Segues into a drug addict saying, "Give me my drugs. I can't climb, I can't do it alone." And that was my thought. Okay, so now I get on the Johnny Carson show,
Right.
and I rehearse Cyrano and Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Producer comes up and says, "That's 6 minutes, it's too long. You can only do 3 minutes. Choose what you want." Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, well, geez, if I do the literature, that's dull. Nobody will buy the record. If I do the song, well, I better do the song.
Yeah.
So I did the song, and everybody said, "What the hell is he doing?" So Rhino Records picked that up, and I became the one of the jokes of the singing actors. But in fact, I wasn't singing.
No,
But in fact, I was an actor doing poetry.
Right.
So I learned later that Garson Foos and what's his brother's name? And Richard Foos. God, what a great audience. So Garson and Richard Foos owned Rhino Records. So they sell Rhino Records, and one day they come to me and they say, "We'd like you to do another record." You guys were the ones that took that thing, and you made so much money, and I never saw a cent. And all this time. They said, "Yeah, well, we want you to do a record." I said, "Well, I don't know what to do." At that point, Ben Folds, who had contacted me a couple of years before, saying that Ben Folds, I don't know whether you know this or not, is sort of an avant-garde. We think he's the Elton John of today. This guy's a genius, and he's a great performer in a theater. You see him at his piano, and he does drums, and he does everything. And he's wild, and he's crazy, and he's filled with imagination. So he had written a number for me, which I did on his record, and it was very successful. So we had become friends. And Garson and Richard Foos are sitting in an office on a sofa, and I'm sitting here, and the phone rings. And I answer the phone, or told the phone. It's Ben Folds. And I say to the Foos brothers, "Would you accept Ben Folds on there?" "Oh, of course." "Ben, would you do a record with me? Would you produce the record? Of course. Ben Folds and I joined forces. And I said to Ben, you know, they're going to laugh at this record. And they're going to, what do I do? And he said, tell the truth. Tell the truth. What a great idea. So I started writing.
Right.
And I've written on the album 8 or 9 of the songs. Lizzie and I wrote a piece of poetry to each other. It's on one of the songs. We've got great performers like Joe Jackson, Henry Rollins, Brad Paisley, Lemon Jelly out of England. It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal record.
Yeah.
And it's truthful because I write things from my heart.
Yeah.
That's apropos of the question you asked.
Yeah, I think that covered it. that covered it. So October 2nd, that's coming out?
October 2nd.
Okay.
Publicity. So I do.
There it goes.
I do Howard Stern.
Yes, quite frequently.
And I will do Howard Stern
yeah.
for this record because he reaches 30 million people.
Right.
Game shows, which I won't do now, but because I'm too busy and that doesn't fit.
Right.
But when I wasn't on a regular show
Kept
and
your name.
wandering around, kept your name out there, and I was always doing something that needed publicity.
Interesting. David Zappone asks, is it true that you submitted an entry to Howard Stern Song Contest?
How would he know that?
I don't know. He knows it. It's a great audience.
So the guy who invented the Priceline commercial, the songs that I did,
Right.
Ernst Capellini. It's not Capellini, but it's something like Capellini. I thought I'd be truthful. But it is Ernst.
Okay.
Said to me a few weeks ago, Howard Stern's running a contest. He's got these lyrics, and he said, nobody could make a song out of these lyrics. And if anybody could make a song out of these lyrics, I'll give it, I think it's $5,000 to the person's charity.
Yeah.
He said, I'd like to make a song.
Yeah.
I said, well, he sent me the lyrics. I said, well, these are stupid lyrics, but let's do it like a bolero, like a tango.
Okay.
Tango, great. So we got musicians, and I do a tango with these stupid lyrics, and we send it to Howard Stern, and has he been playing it yet? No kidding. What did he say? What did he say? What?
None of the other people in the show believe you actually said it. They thought he was joking, that you would send in an
So there was a method to my madness, okay?
Yes.
Because again, I've gotten to know Howard. Okay, we've gone to dinner with him. We're social friends.
Right.
I knew this would kind of be stunning, and I knew that he would play it. I'm sure thousands of people sent a record, but I knew he'd play this. So good, bad, or indifferent, he said Shatner record. I'm going to go to Howard Stern in a month or two.
Yeah.
When we start the campaign for Has Been. I'm reading a newspaper on my way someplace, and I read my name. It says Has Been. How Has Been? And then I thought, that is one of the worst words in the English language. Has been is one of the lyric I write is has been was. No, has been's history. Has been was. Has been might again. So that was part of the lyric.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. There's a second question here. Any thoughts on Howard's trouble with the FCC?
Yeah, if you don't want to listen, don't listen.
Yeah. D. Graves says, I've read that you're very good at improv. Could you use these 3 words in a sentence, please? If you do this, I'm sure it will make the SAG Conversations highlight reel. Okay, so there's your incentive. Okay. Tribble, Hooker, and Denny Crane.
What the hell is Tribble? Denny Crane. Got a hooker?
Denny Crane is such a wonderful character. How did you, yeah. I mean, just such a joy to see you out there working
Well,
like that.
I'm having so much fun. I don't know what he is.
Yeah,
Neither does anybody else.
yeah.
For example, here's what happened today. They wrote a new scene that I'll do tomorrow. And it has to do with him saying something extravagant. You got to do this, and you got to do that, and you got to do this. And then his buddy, not James, but somebody else in the cast, the guy he trusts, and the person who said, hey, you got to get some garbage, you got to burn some evidence, and go do it. And then the way it's written, he turns to his buddy and he says, do you believe what they think? Do you believe what they think I'm capable of doing? And the guy says, well, he could have fooled me. So I went to the producer and I said, it's wrong that I should say, do you believe what you think? Do you believe what they think I'm capable of doing?
Right.
Because that suggests that I'm cognizant of what I'm doing.
Right.
The mystery should be, is he cognizant of the Denny Crane?
Right.
Or is he not?
Yeah.
Is he senile or is he cunning?
Yeah.
And it should be left open and not answered by a guy saying, oh, do you believe what they think I'm capable of? So we cut the line. So that's meant to me that the people writing the show don't quite know what he is either.
Right.
And I don't know what he is. And I'd like to keep the question open for as long as possible.
Flying without a net.
Flying without a net. So you play everything.
Yeah.
The way we used to get Star Trek scripts where you'd get 10 pages. You get 5 pages for the morning.
Yeah.
Here's what we're doing. They're rewriting the other 5, and of course we don't have this. Well, what's the plot? I mean, who's this person? Well, we don't know quite whether it is. So you'd memorize the words, and you'd think, okay, hi. And I don't know whether I like you or hate you. Are you my mortal enemy or are you not?
Did David Kelly at all come after you, or did you?
He did, and that was part of the lure. I never wanted to do a series again because of the expenditure of time. But one day, David Kelly wanted to have breakfast with me, so I went down. Lizzie and I went down to Elizabeth, and I went down to breakfast, and he outlined a character, just sort of in broad terms. And then he said something like, "And the face-off is," and I said, "Face-off? Are you interested in hockey?" In hockey? Yeah. And I didn't know his history.
know.
No, I didn't know. He said, "Yes, I'm a hockey player." No kidding. I'm from Canada, Montreal. Yeah, I know. And we started talking hockey.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then a couple days later, he was looking at me. He wanted to know whether I was senile or not. I don't know. And he offered me the job, and the possibility of doing a series. So I was in 4 out of 6 of the last season. Turned out to be 6 out of 6, and the character just grew. I had an impression that as I did it, he was watching rushes, and the more I did, the more he did. And I think that's what it was. And I suddenly had of Shakespeare writing for his players. We tend to, well, what does this scene mean? But I think Shakespeare was, well, I guess he wasn't going like that.
No, probably not.
Writing as he saw his players. He saw, well, look at, what was the big buffoon guy?
Falstaff.
No, who played him? Will Kemp. Will Kemp.
Man.
I knew if I asked this,
Absolutely.
But who was the guy who played the big fat? Burbage. So you see Burbage, I say, Burbage is funny. I'll give him some verbiage. I'll give Burbage some verbiage.
You seem to be having more fun in your career now than maybe
I'm so
ever
depressed.
before. Yeah, then you're one heck of an actor, you know? Yeah.
I am having fun. I'm been gifted by life, by my family and my wife, who is we met each other under the most extreme circumstances. One would have thought it was the end of both our lives, and we found each other. And this album is, to a large extent, a homage to my wife.
You also have a couple of charities that you work with. The one that I'm thinking of, those Ahead with Horses. That also came out of that.
I run a horse show at the Los Angeles Equestrian Center the end of every April, every year for the last 16 years. And they'll be on next year. And we've raised over the 15 years well over $2 million for handicapped kids in every way, handicapped financially, emotionally, physically. And an additional fund that we try and send some money to is a fund for addicted women. And so we've been able, because it's by now, it's a large group of volunteers have come with me and help a large extent. And I put the arm on people. I've made cold calls to raise funds for $100. I mean, there's nothing I won't do to use this coin of the realm, this celebrity that has been foisted on me. I use it in other ways as well, which is to raise funds for people who need help. And it's the greatest gift of all, actually.
Absolutely. Joey Daniels asks, when and for what part was the last audition you were required to perform? Do you ever have to audition anymore?
Not really.
When was it?
When was the last time I auditioned?
See, half the room is thinking the same thing.
Well,
I don't get out nearly enough. When was the last time? When was that?
Tell you, auditions are horrendous.
They're hard.
They're hard, and I've now sat on the other end of the table, and although I can't remember when I last auditioned, I do remember the sense of auditioning. Can't be specific, but I remember being nervous and going in. And if I were to say anything about I try to give a helpful hint in an audition, I would say that, with some exceptions, that it's the likability factor, which doesn't mean you need to ingratiate yourself. Good morning, hello, how are you? Anything I can do for you? It's in the area of the role you're being asked to play that at this point the audience, which is behind the desk, identify with you. That you give them enough to say, wow, I like this person playing this role, even if it's not a likable person. There still has to be a factor of identification from the people behind the desk. You don't have to memorize the lines. You don't have to, if you mess up a word, a phrase, you have to refer to the script or the stage manager, the lousy reader. That's not of great importance. What is important is that you are within yourself and you are yourself. And you bring to that role you yourself uniquely. And this thing of likability, the more I look around me at people that you want to go see, you want to like them, whether they're playing the monster or not.
How do you help to make the actor's job a little easier when you are the auditioner?
Auditions that I remember never had any respect. There's an individual who comes in with his own history, his own trials, and his journey in life, and he needs the respect of somebody who seeks to employ him. So when I'm directing anything, it's a one-on-one mutual respect, and let me see what you've got. Show me your best. I want to hire you. Just be yourself, and if it's and the rejection is awful, but it could be, you know, the timbre of your voice. It could be the dark color of your hair. Right. It hasn't anything likely to do with your talent, because you can't tell very much by how you're going to be in a reading. You're not going to make the big dramatic moments in a reading, but you're going to be either something of what the director thinks of for the part, the template for the part, or something else appeals. But invariably, it's not, I hit that moment, I was really good. Although that does happen.
Elliot Gray wants to know what effect the Priceline commercials have had on your career besides the money.
Probably very salutary. Both with the kidding around with the singing and the jokes with that are out there now.
We're trying to get Leonard to be here and sitting in your seat when you arrived, but it didn't.
He's in Lake Tahoe.
Oh, see, well, that's right.
He's not coming down for anything. Well, for money, he'd come down.
Now, how has it made a difference?
I think it has. I'm not sure that that David Kelly saw something along the line there and said, "Ooh." Which is another admonition that I've sort of lived by, perhaps too much, but maybe not. And that work begets work.
Yes.
So it's, you turn down a job for it's too small, it's not right, I don't like. It has to be pretty serious for you to turn down a job.
Yeah. Aaron asks, you recently wrote a film about the practice of sitting Shiva in the Jewish religion. How has being Jewish affected or informed your identity and work as an actor?
Well, probably not at all. I don't have the ethnic look, so I was never sort of thought of as. In fact, there would be Jewish producers who would say, "You're not Jewish." And I'd have to do the 4 questions to it, so, which is all I can remember. Manish on the halal hazah. Oh yeah, you're Jewish. Get out of here, you.
In some of the research, there's a couple of people that like to say that somehow Star Trek had Jewish overtones and flavors, and yeah, I think one of your responses was, "Well, half the guys on the show were Jewish."
Well, no, Leonard's Jewish and I'm Jewish. I don't think that. I think it counts for it.
Yeah.
Everybody else was not Jewish.
Yeah. Was there anything that resonated in that way, or that
about being Jewish?
I don't know. There was this discussion group that was going.
No. Well,
nothing that you know of.
There are discussion groups in areas that you wouldn't believe about Star Trek.
Yes, indeed.
Especially about Leonard and me. Man.
Yeah. You're not kidding. Stephen Kirk wants to know, how is Bill Shatner, the actor, different from the circa 1960s actor? How is today's Bill Shatner, I suppose, is what he's trying to ask there.
Well, size 40 to 44, I guess. I'm totally different. My cells, every 7 years, my cells regenerated. The thing that we can't stand the most, and that is the constant, is change. Yeah. We're constantly changing. We've all changed from the beginning of this session to the end of it. And there seems to be a built-in, a hardwired reaction to change in the human being. No. And yet, it is the one thing, that and death, is the constant. So the boy of 1960 young man of 1960 is totally different And yet, I see out of that boy's eyes. I, in my opinion, am no different, except that I may be kinder and less emotional and more polite, maybe. And I'm certainly no, and my record deals with this, I'm certainly no more sure of myself than I was then. I have no sense of accomplishment in that sense, but I'm different and I'm the same.
Nicely put. Not to put you on the spot, but I'm doing so anyway. What makes a good actor? What is it that makes a good actor?
First and foremost is lack of self-consciousness. You can't be self-conscious and be an actor. Secondly, an emotional sense of identification. Thirdly, energy, probably health. Very difficult to be sickly and be an actor. You need an inner core of energy, even if it's banked, even if it's subdued, lurking underneath there to make everything work. There's got to be an energy. Somewhere, to some degree, is a sense of truthfulness. Then to be really an actor, you need some of the technical equipment. You need flexibility. You need a voice. And you need intelligence. And you need a hard heart to withstand the vicissitudes.
Yeah. Well,
beam me up.
Beam me up, Scotty.
you put it under the pedal.
I want to say one more thing.
One more word.
Thank you. Thank you for sitting still for 2 hours and more. I haven't said that to anybody in 30 years.
Thank you. Thank you. William Shatner.